Hi there! Welcome to the Gardens and Graveyard channel. My name is Charisma, and today we're meeting in the studio and I'm going to transplant this giant tall plant. Recently we did a video kind of rejuvenating pothos from my dining room, and I had some cuttings that I had rooted from this plant in a small container, and I had a pothos drop into that container, root itself, and I needed to transplant the begonia anyways. This is a angel wing begonia. I needed to transplant the baby begonia anyway, but I had to completely disassemble it because the pothos was growing right in between it and the roots were all tangled. So I had planned to do both of my begonias at once. You got to see me do the baby on her own. But now we've got to deal with this one. So originally I really thought I was just going to take cuttings off the top and put them down around these canes. But when I pulled this pot out of its decorative container, I realized that there's roots coming out the bottom. And it's like the canes are all already really pushed up against the edge of this container. I don't want to bump it up a whole lot, but I do want to bump it up a little bit. So we're going to work on that. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. My thought process is I still am going to take off some of this top growth. We're going to pull the plant out and see how intact all the roots are. I had made myself a moss pole. You have to keep them moist for them to actually work. And I did not keep this moist, but it is acting as a trellis. It's not beautiful. It's mostly covered. I don't know. I just don't know if I want to keep it or if I want to find something else that won't take up. The moss pole is probably like 3 inches around. And maybe if I found something smaller that I could put in this container, there will be more room for the canes and the roots. Just really what I am inclined to do. I don't know. It does need to be pretty strong to hold all this leaf canopy. Ugh. The dilemmas. I really don't have anything just like big enough. So I think I'm just gonna, if I can easily transplant it with the moss pole, I would like to just do a direct move for it. And then next year when I do a bump up, I'll be a little bit more prepared that it is going to grow out of this smaller. This is just barely bigger than this. But I really wasn't prepared to transplant it at all. I thought I was just going to make some cuttings off of it. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and get our soil prepared and cut the top off of this and then see where we are there. So I have my mixing bowl and the last of some soil. I knew there wasn't very much soil in that, so I have a new bag of soil. Right here, this is just everyday potting mix. Stuff on here. So, but I just use everyday potting mix, and even when it's made for raised beds or indoor gardening, I always add a lot of perlite into my soil mix. And I do that because we live on the Oregon coast, and I have very humid spaces, and my plants tend to not dry out, although this one sits right next to a heater vent, so it does actually dry out pretty quickly. And now that I'm seeing how full of plant it is, it's no wonder that I've been watering it more than I typically have to water, even next to the heat register. Okay, so this is just gonna have a little soil on the bottom. And then we'll have this ready for anything extra. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to clip it right above the uppermost leaf node at the top of this moss pole. Like that. And I'm just going to do that all the way around. If it's just barely above it, I'm going to leave it alone. This one is damaged. Just also looking for anything that might be dead or damaged as I turn it around. This one. This one looks like I can just get, okay. So these we will work on in a minute. Just set it to the side for a second. This one, I have these little plastic ties that do this, that I just kind of sneak in between the hardwire cloth and tack these guys up. Just broke this leaf. Oops. Okay. So that they don't fall forward too much. So, it's hard to show because it has such giant leaves. But essentially, they're not really like tied, they're just sort of held. So anyhow, all right, so I'm happy with how this looks as far as the health of the plant, how things are looking, whatever. So now what I want to do is try to carefully pull it out of this pot and get it into this pot. I just brought this pot in from outside. It's got pine needles on it. Okay, so I'm going to try to get a good hand on this moss pole because it's very heavy. Okay, great. Excellent. All right, that was easy enough. And there's a little bit of roots coming out here, but it doesn't look or feel super root bound. There's nice healthy roots on it. So I'm not gonna rough up the roots much. I just wanna, okay, let's get these leaves out of there. It's too much soil. I want the soil line to be the same as it was already. So, gosh, it's so hard. Okay. I just want to get soil all around this root ball, which is a little difficult because it's just barely bigger. The pot is just barely bigger than the root ball. I'm probably going to make a giant mess. It's fine. Okay, so before I get it too tucked in there, I do want to get these other cuttings snuck in. So I have 3 cuttings, and I would like to fill some of these empty spaces. Like there's a big empty space right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bottom leaf off. It just pops off like that. Where I cut it off of the top and where I pop that leaf off, it's going to grow roots. So I just want to make sure there's plenty of space to sneak it all the way down in there. And we're going to put it all the way in, and then we're going to put some soil around it. Make sure that there's no air pockets for the rest of the roots or around this new stem. Okay. And then I am going to want to train it, so I'm just going to take this piece, pull it around that stem, and sneak it back in there. Just like that, and eventually it'll just kind of hold. Pull it a little tighter. I pull a little tighter to convince it to stay up. Okay. And then we're going to come around this way, and there's a seam right here that's showing. And we're going to take this and do the same thing. We're going to take the bottom leaf off. and we're going to make sure there's a space for it. Just gonna stick it in there as far down as we can, with as many of the leaf node pieces under the soil. This one is already pretty close, but I'm just still gonna put another holder just so it doesn't flop forward. Just like that. Okay. So then there's a little bit of a gap right here and a little bit of a gap right here. So I just need to decide which one. I think this one will be the best. Yeah, let's just do this one. Again, this has a pretty good stem with a leaf node and an empty spot, or a cut stem. So I'm just gonna stick her right there. Okay, great. And she's not very tall, so I'm not gonna worry about trying to get her trained yet. Okay, then I'm just gonna go around all these stems and make sure there aren't any pockets of soil that need to be filled. Great, that seems pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and water it in. Okay. Well, that was quick and simple and easy. This one's done and it looks great, and she fits back in her space nicely, and she's not super tall. Definitely I'm going to need a bigger pot next year, but I think this will work out just fine for one more year. So you see, she just fits right back in the original container that she was in, and I have her on a spinner so I can spin her even though she's right here next to a heat register. And the other one ended up right here, also on a spinner, the same kind of container, so they match, which is super fun. And so that is going to do it for today's video. We just got this angel wing wax begonia all settled into her space for another year, and I'm super glad that we got it done. So thanks for hanging out with me while we did this little project, and I hope you're celebrating your life, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.